Stock asked me after the Spy X Festival what was my favorite fruit. She totally took me off guard. Like, and you can tell because I'm like, and my niece Christine's like, Auntie Lena, you didn't know what to say, did you? And I'm like,
Auntie Lena.
Yeah, Auntie
See,
Lena.
I'm sorry. I hear that. It's like, oh, so is auntie a way? Is that like a family way we say aunt or auntie?
Northern thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's a northern thing.
It's northern, yeah.
Oh, for sure. We're aunties, uncles.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also Italian, too.
Yeah.
That plays a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
We're both Italian New England, so.
We are live. I want to say a quick thank you to everybody. We broke the 500 subscribers on our channel today, so thank you very much to everybody who's hit the button. Yeah, let's do the intros because today we've got our special guest. So Lena, if you want to start with the intros, and we'll go around from there.
Awesome. All right, I will start. Lena Sisco, former Navy intelligence officer and Marine Corps certified interrogator who interrogated at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. I have also, given a TED Talk at some point. I've published a lot of books, and I don't have it right in front of me because I changed direction today, but I just released, thank you, thank you, Robin. So I just came out with Honest Answers, which is my third book, and I own the Congruency Group and Sector Intelligence. I've worked for tons of agencies, and here I am today. And I would like to maybe toss the ball over to the person sitting right next to me that I can touch, because she is an amazing, dear friend of mine, and she has so much knowledge and gifts to give all of our listeners that I just think it's absolutely incredible that she's physically here with me, but that she can join in today and share all of her knowledge. So, Ali, take it away.
Thanks, Lena.
Introduce yourself.
I always love the intro question. It's like, where do you even start? But my name is Ali Deuso. My first name is Elisa, but I go by Ali. My profession, as far as my moneymaker, is I'm an executive recruiter in the accounting and finance field, and I've been doing that for about 20 years. But I've got the woo side of me, which is why I'm here tonight. I'm an owner of a club on Clubhouse, which I'm not sure if you guys, I know that Gavin and Lena obviously know about Clubhouse. It's called the Embrace the Woo Club. I'm a spiritual life coach, as well as a career coach. And I'm an artist. I am into music. I'm a musician. I am a little bit of everything. I'm a witch. I do a lot of different things. I kind of don't know really where to pinpoint me because I'm kind of all over the place. But I'm here for the purposes. Lena and I have had a long history of being friends, but our careers have intersected so many times, and we keep finding ourselves like just always. It's just amazing, and we have these amazing deep conversations. I'm just grateful to be here to share my knowledge of all things spiritual and all things woo-woo with you guys. I did listen to your show the show you did, the first one on the woo, and it was incredible. And I was just getting all these light bulb moments, and I'm just grateful to be here with you guys to talk about it. So I'm going to pass the mic to Gav or Robin. I don't know which one of you want to take over and save me.
Yeah, Robin, do you want to go first? You've moved your mic forward a bit, and you got your telly on today, so we can't see what you're playing with under your desk this time. So
I'm just like there's chilly in my house. It's like I got my sweatshirt on. Robin Dreeke, former FBI spy recruiter, Marine, best-selling author of 3 books, and owner of People Formula, which is my company where I do speaking and mostly coaching and consulting on all things really interpersonal communication strategy based stuff. There you go.
And your podcast.
And podcast host of the Forged by Trust podcast, which is the thing probably is my big why right now. I love hosting that show and having amazing people like all of you all. And then I'm thinking, Ali, I'm going to have you on the show as well, because people have these beautiful stories, and it's such a beautiful journey. As we were talking about beforehand, I just interviewed another guest yesterday. And when you hear these stories, in order to make that connection, and I'm sorry, Gav, I'll get into you in a sec, hand it over. But, it's Ali will talk about, and that is, I was working with someone today, asking them, so how do you prep for an engagement with someone? And he was getting it. Is like, you totally let go. You have to completely immerse yourself and prep yourself for the engagement of being them. And it comes to reading too. And we're highlighting this, with your two amazing books behind me that I just started. I asked him this question also was, because I got him, he's reading Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, and got him reading the Tao Te Ching. And he said, I was kind of resistant to reading these things because I'm just not into it. But I'm seeing the value of it for me. And I said, okay, that's half the equation. Why is the other reason you read them? And he got that as well. And I said, because if you have at least one person in your life that is consuming this information, it means something to them, then why not read it to understand them at a deeper level? So you read for yourself and you read to understand others at a deeper level. So there you go. That's me. What an intro. I digress.
I loved it.
That's a new record.
That's my way of highlighting your two books that I've dove both into at the same time. So
there we go. Well, I'll start with that then. So I'm Gavin Stone, best-selling author of How to Tell If Someone Is Lying, and this is my latest debut fiction novel, The Unforgiven Spy. Look at that. Books everywhere. Thank you.
I even got a bookmark so you can see I'm reading it.
Hey, looks so I'm a former civil servant for the British Ministry of Defence. I've been in the security and intelligence industry around about 20 years on and off, and I've worked in a myriad of areas from close protection, covert surveillance, penetration testing, human intelligence gathering, all manner of different areas, and what a fantastic group of people I've worked with, all sorts of agencies all around the world. I'm very, very lucky. And now I'm surrounded by just the greatest friends in the world. And tonight's show is actually originally, I'm going to give credit to Robin here, because after going on his podcast, it was his words where he said, I've noticed all the kind of people in the industry have got that they've got a level of openness towards woo, and this was where kind of Robin wanted to explore it a little bit. So I'm going to put my hands up here and say, look, I am completely out of my comfort zone with this. As I said before, I'm new to the woo. And this is something where I always look at everything from a scientific angle. I'm very mathematical with how I think. I always try and figure out how and why. And to use Robin's words, sometimes you do have to just let go and just say, look, it just works. It just is. And you just have to trust the process. So yeah, I'm like I say, I'm going to be maybe a bit of a mediator. So Ali's probably going to do a lot of the talking tonight. I'm going to be going over to Ali and say,
hot seat.
Tell me more. So
Give me that ice water. No, just kidding.
that's it. So because I am very new to this subject, and because I am exploring it open-mindedly as I can, I'm gonna ping it straight over to the master now and put it over to you, to Ali, to explain to anybody who missed the last one or anybody who's new watching tonight, exactly in your terms, how would you define woo? What is woo?
So it's a great question. So, that the term things being woo-woo, I've been hearing it my pretty much half of my life, because I'm the person that everyone in my family, at least, because all of my family, they're in science, and they're, my brother's a judge, and my sister, they're all in scientific types of fields. My mom was a nurse, and then there was me. And I was always what they would call hippy dippy. Right. And then hippy dippy now has become woo woo. Right. And all woo woo means is it's actually a derogatory term. But what it means is just things that are not proven by science. Right. Mm-hmm. They're esotericism. And that's basically what I have been interested in pretty much my entire life. And I don't believe that's by accident. I believe in past lives. I believe in reincarnation. I believe that there's something in my past lives that have brought me to this point. We're all into things for a reason. Like, you don't find yourself obsessed or interested in topics for no reason. I believe it comes from somewhere, right? So that will fall under that. These things are just not proven by science yet, right? But they will be, just like you guys said in your last show. Like, these things are the things that we think are woo-woo now, maybe in 10, 20, 30 years won't be, because they'll be proven by science. There's so much intersection between these two topics now, with people like Joe Dispenza. I'm not sure if you guys follow any of his work. He's amazing, and he does a lot of. He was in a very, very bad bicycle accident where he's a chiropractor, and he healed himself through using very esoteric treatments, meditation. And he's been doing all of this research on the intersection between science and spirituality and connecting, like our thoughts produce chemicals in our bodies, right? I do a show on Clubhouse with this modality called emotion code. I teach tapping. I didn't even talk about that. I'm not good at ranting off all of the things that I do, but I'm not sure if you guys know what EFT is, like emotional freedom technique. And it's tapping on the meridian systems in the body, right? So we tap into these systems in the body and we release emotions that get trapped within our bodies, things that are unprocessed. So we're finding out all these things about healing our bodies through things that would be considered esoteric or woo, right? But they're the things that I believe in wholly. Now, when you guys did your first show, I knew I was really interested in what your interpretation of woo was. So I did listen to it, and I loved it because you were talking about relating to people on another level. That's not explained by science. So I'm a recruiter, and you guys talked a lot about that. I interview people. I have to connect with people in some way. I'm empathic. 100%, I'm an empath. But that's just saying I'm an empath, but you still have to find a way to make that connection with people. How are you going to do it? Are you going to do it with going online and trying to find out stuff about people? Or are you going to do it by reading their energy, right? And so that's kind of how I approach it. And I believe that we're all connected and we're all energetic beings and we vibrate, right? We all vibrate. We all have an energy. We all have a frequency. We vibrate at a certain frequency.
432 hertz.
Say that one more time.
432 hertz.
I do sound healing too, so I have sound bowls that I ring that all have different megahertz. Right? I can go on about this. We can go down very deep, many holes.
Yeah.
But it's about so you're emitting a certain frequency. It's like a radio station. You connect to that radio station. You're on that same vibration or frequency. So how you operate yourself through life, you're on a certain frequency. So when I'm meeting people, I try to shut up and listen, first of all. I try to do a lot of active listening, which is a lot harder than it sounds to actively listen, especially when they're talking about accounting and finance, which really I could give a shit about. Sorry. I don't care about it, but I do care about it to the point where that's what I'm trying to help people do. So I'm very cognizant of people's energy and trying to connect with them on a different level. And I don't even know that it's something I do. And it's just something I've always done. And I could never really put words to it. It was just something that I was just naturally adept at. Right. And so it helps me in my job. But there are certain things like I listened to you guys talk, Robin and Gavin, when you were talking on the show. I did get some things out of that because I don't do it because I was taught. I do it because I just started doing it and it was just innate in me. But how do we figure out how to do that? That's the big question, right? Like where does it become something otherworldly? Or when is it just, so I look at people's resumes. You guys do it differently. You guys do a different level of interviewing than I do. Recruitment for me is looking at someone's resume and trying to kind of ask questions and connect and let them feel safe to open up to me. Same when I'm coaching people. I'm a life coach as well. It's the same. Letting people, creating a space for them to feel like they can open up, right? Creating a safe space for someone. And however I have to do that, that's what I do. I don't know what just happened. Did you get? I lost the camera, but that's all right. I'm so sorry.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, it's still working. That's all good.
I just went on a tangent there.
That was
No. It was good. I noticed. I saw Robin's light bulb ping at least once, and he's looking like he's poised with a question. So, do you want to go first, Robin?
Only Only if I'm allowed.
Now the question is easier for me because I have ADHD on top of all of that, which I look as a gift instead of something I have to heal. So I'm all over the place. So just give me a question.
Everything is always a gift.
That's right. I love that.
So, Ali, my question kind of goes towards your origin story. You said you grew up in a house where everyone is it sounds like more of an objective scientific thinker. What was your first spark and do you remember what it was when you're like, something's a little different? What was it? And when was it?
Oh yeah, it was very young. I just didn't fit in anywhere.
Okay, so you say you didn't fit in. How did you not fit in?
Well, I was bullied as a kid.
For what?
For not being like the other kids. It was a bunch of things. I just wasn't a normal kid. I
define normal.
What's normal? What's normal? You're good. You're good.
You're saying I'm just curious. You know, every time someone shares a context, I'd love to understand the context.
I think because I wanted to. I think the biggest thing was that I wanted to be in the popular crowd, but I just didn't fit the mold in any kind of way. I didn't look the part. I wasn't one of those like perfect, cute little people. I was just. I was always the tallest kid. I was always the tallest kid. I was bigger than everybody else, and I wasn't. I was deep. I was just a deep person. I was very. I don't want to say intellectual. That's not the right word, but I was cerebral. I could say as a young kid, and I was in my inside family. I was the youngest, and the rest of my siblings really didn't want to play with me because I was younger and I just had to spend a lot of time by myself. And I think I was just not comfortable in who I was. I felt like I wanted to be somewhere else than where I was. I think that's the best place, that I just never felt like I fit in anywhere. And it was probably my own thing, but I couldn't articulate it. When you're a kid, you don't know what that means.
And how old were you when you started feeling that?
Well, I remember feeling that way, like really young, like even when I was really small. I played by myself all the time. I was quiet. I cried all the time. All I wanted to do was be connected to my mom. And
what did you play?
I like to play like I was in a fantasy land, like in the far, like I always felt like. It's going to sound weird, but I always felt like I was a fairy in the woods. Like I just wanted to be in Never Land. It was just I just wanted to play in this very, like, I was always attracted to the woods, to the trees.
Mm-hmm. Did you see that in a movie, or did you read it or watch it? Or
no, I don't think I ever saw it in a movie. I don't think I ever saw it in a movie. I don't know. I think that it was just something. I was hiding. I was always hiding. I wanted to be in forts. I used to make forts all the time when I was a kid. So I think I just learned at a very young age that I wasn't like everybody else. And it's followed me throughout my entire life. I just always felt like I wasn't like anybody else. And I was almost up to the point where I felt like I was an alien on this earth. Honestly, like it felt like I just didn't belong here. It was something else I should have been doing. Like I should have been in a fantasy world, really.
So what did you do to start feeling connected?
I tried everything. I tried everything to connect to people. And I think as I got older, I got into drugs. I got into alcohol. I got into hanging around with a certain group of people, because then I just tried to drown it out.
How old was that?
Oh God, probably 14, 15, and I just tried to drown it out.
Right.
And so I got into, then I got into art, and I got into music, and it led me down a whole different path of, I was a rebel. I mean, I turned into a punk rocker, and I lived that whole life. And then I became a musician. I became an artist. I went to school for art. And I think my whole entire life, I was looking for some way to figure it all out, which is how I ended up getting into self-help, which happened I had an eating disorder. That all because I just couldn't figure out who I was.
What were your parents doing when they started recognizing this?
I don't know that they ever really They were a lot older. I had older parents, and I was the youngest, and they could never relate to me really. So I think they did a great job, and they did their best, but they really just didn't understand me, to be honest. They really didn't. And
who do you think was the first person that did understand you?
I would say it was probably one of my siblings, maybe my oldest sibling. You know, she saw things. I think somehow there's this connection between the oldest and the youngest.
Right. What was the age gap between the
I don't want to paint a picture that my family treated me poorly, because they didn't. Because
Right.
they did their best
Sure.
to try to really understand me. But I think all that stuff happened for me, not to me.
Sure.
You know? It happened for me to take me on this journey so that I could get to a place where I could then share my experiences and help other people.
Sure.
Because I didn't have a terrible childhood in the way that some people do, but I also didn't have an easy one.
Right.
You know? And I think that all that stuff happened to me on purpose to take me to this place where I would go in and I would try to figure this shit out. Excuse my language. Like I often say, like, this making a decision to take a spiritual journey is not an easy one.
When did you decide that?
I'm sorry?
When did you decide that?
Oh, when I was about 15. My first foray into things that were esoteric would have been witchcraft. I got into that at a very young age. And to be honest with you, I can't remember how I even got into it, but I think it was just something I fell into. I remember going to the library in school. I think I was a freshman in high school, maybe. And I found this book on occultism. And I started reading it. And then I started to just experiment with stuff. And that was but then I realized that really wasn't for me, because it was a little bit too dark for me. But that was how I got into it. And then from there, I became an agnostic, right? Where I said, well, that's it. I don't believe in the Catholic. I was brought up a Catholic, like Lena. Yeah. And I just couldn't relate to it anymore, in the respect that I couldn't let anybody tell me, because I was very rebellious even throughout all this, that the way I chose to live my life was bad and I was going to go to hell if I didn't believe in this or in that and this. And I'm like, there's no way you're going to tell me that people that believe in, let's say, Buddhism or Taoism or any of these other very gentle, loving religions are going to go to hell. And if that's where they're going, I'll see you there, because I'm
I'll be there.
I'll see you. I'll see you at whatever gates they are.
Yep.
And so it just started there, and it really blossomed. And I've always just felt this need to keep learning and growing and digging and digging and digging. It was just always that. Like, I never felt like I could. So this whole concept of doing shadow work and getting and delving in deep to the dark side, because we all have dark and light, right? It's the polarity. And it looks like a dog is saying, yeah, me too. So it's always been something that I felt like I was meant to do. Just like somebody feels like they're meant to be a doctor, or they're meant to be. That's what I felt like I was meant to do. So, like, I'm really obsessed with woo, and I'm obsessed with the intersection of science and woo, because now we've come so far in that topic. Like, just talking about how they're figuring out stuff that 10 or 12 years ago we wouldn't have known. I mean, all the time. So, for instance, with emotion code or tapping, because they're very similar. So I'm going to show you a quick tapping round, right? So let's say your nervous system is going crazy because something sets you off. You have a trigger that makes you so angry. Like, I talk to Lena about this all the time, because rage is something we both experience. So I can teach you how to go through a tapping round, and there's setup statements, and it's going to calm your nervous system down. It works every time. Okay, so how do you explain that? You can't really. I mean, they're starting to learn about it. But so a tapping round is there's meridian points in your body. Okay, here's one, right? This fatty part of your hand. Here's two. Now this is the right side I'm tapping on. I'm going to tell you, right side is for releasing.
Can we let people know what a meridian point is and what
Yeah. So there's your body, just like when you go to acupuncture, right? There's a lot of meridian points. There's more meridian points that I could ever tell you. They're between your fingers. They're all over your body. But the typical tapping round will tap on these points, and I'll run you through them. So the tapping I teach doesn't do this particular karate chop point, but it will do this. So let's say you're mad about something that happens with your spouse, and they set you off like, I don't even know, like say such and such did.
They drank milk out of the container without.
And I'm like, mother, you're gonna do that again. Okay. So you're gonna run a tapping point. I can't believe that Eli is drinking the milk out of the container again. How many times? So this is the first point, second point, third, fourth. I'm just running this really quick. Fifth, sixth, under the arm here, and then here, right? So you do this tapping round and you do statements, right? And what I teach people is say the things that you want to say to that person that you cannot say to them. And let's face it, there's things that you want to say to your spouse or someone that you can't say to them because you're going to go to, you probably be divorced or something like that. Say while you're tapping on these rounds. And what it's going to do is release the toxins that are produced from the chemicals, from the thoughts that are in your body, and it moves them out. Now, that's not really something that sounds normal to most people. But let me tell you, in maybe 10, 15 years, it will be, right? I'm here trying to make it sort of more mainstream for people. Like, this is okay to do.
Yeah.
This is woo, but it's okay to do.
And
right?
and I love what you brought up, because she'll say, hey, I got into witchcraft. And all of a sudden people judge, label that word.
We call it Satanist,
right?
That's actually what I wanted to go to next was, what does being a witch mean? Since that was the first thing you really explored when you were younger. I'm curious what that means.
So it depends on what specific. Okay, so I consider my
kitchen witch.
Yeah,
and work with herbs while you're cooking.
Yeah,
that witch, like interrogation.
Yeah, say what?
I said, turns out I'm a witch too, then, because I work with herbs while I'm cooking all the time.
Yeah, that's good.
You should try my spaghetti bolognese.
That is. I mean, you're connecting. You're cooking a meal for the people that you love, even for you. You're cooking a meal. You are infusing that food with your energy. I would hope, like you are, regardless of whether you know it. Even if let's say and this is something I really tell people to pay attention to. So often we're all like cooking dinner after work. And if you have a really stressful day at work, right? And then you got to go down like, I swear, well, fuck, I got to go cook dinner. Sorry. I don't want to do it. But you're like, you're angsty and you're angry and you're putting all that into that food.
Yeah.
You're putting all that into that food, right? That's all part of it. It's like so try to be mindful about it and say, okay, you know what? Listen, that whatever happened. I am going to be cooking this food. And we're going to be eating this food. I am not going to be putting those emotions or energies into that food, right? Food everything has consciousness. We've learned that, right? Everything. The food, like we don't eat meat, right? So if you do eat meat, you know what? Say thank you to the animal that sacrificed itself so that it could feed you, because everything has consciousness. Everything, right?
Can I pause you there for just 1 second? What I want to do, there's probably 1 or 2 people who are watching this, and some of them are going like, yeah, me too. I know that there's 1 or 2 people who go, I'm a witch, and then there's 1 or 2 people who are probably
calling me a Satanist.
But it was the bit where you were saying everything's got consciousness, and for those who've got any doubts at this particular point, did any of you guys do the rice experiment at school?
The rice experiment?
Have you ever heard of it? No, you can do exactly the same thing with plants. It's a science experiment that I'm going to do with my daughter. It's been done time and time again with exactly the same results every single time. You can plant 3 seeds in 3 different pots, and every day as you water them, you say to the one, I love you. You ignore the middle one, and the end one you say, I hate you.
Yeah.
And at the end of each of the plants growing, the one that you say I love you is flourishing and doing really, really well. The one that's ignored is just barely growing, and the one that you say I hate you is struggling to survive.
Right.
And they do exactly the same thing with rice. They put the rice in the water. They do exactly the same thing with rice, and because rice doesn't spoil, and over time, the rice that you say I love you, it stays perfectly fine. The one that you ignore, it starts to turn. And the one that you say I hate you, it starts to go black and moldy and really, really disgusting, all within the same time period, exactly the same measurements and amounts of rice or plants or whatever you're using, same types of plants. It's been proven time and time again. So when you say, everything is receptive to what's going on and the energy around it, it is scientifically proven. This is not just something that, and like I say, I've done this experiment.
Cool.
Yeah, it's
And
not just
so I would love to jump in, and you know me, I'm always connecting dots, right?
Mhm.
And I love our audience. Hey, everybody! I'm sorry I haven't been able to call you out by name. I am reading your comments. Welcome. We're so happy you're here. The connection when you connect with people. Sometimes you connect with people, and oh, geez, my dog. You can't understand why, right? Why all of a sudden did I really like this person, or why did I shy away from that person? I don't feel really comfortable. It's something that you're picking up, right? And it may be a level deeper than what we can put into words or understand. Another thing is mirror neurons, right? That is causing people to take on and kind of mirror your demeanor and your emotions. Right. And whenever we teach, and all of us have taught this, how to connect with people, how to interview people, you always want to bring that positive energy into the room, because that's what they're going to mirror. I do this in every single interrogation and interview I've done for the past 2 decades, like 20 years. I have been utilizing mirror neurons. But if I would have told anybody in 2002, while I was an interrogator in Gitmo, and I said, hey, I'm utilizing mirror neurons, they would have tossed me in a loony bin. Like,
That's right. That's right. This is what I'm saying.
Because you can't define it, or people aren't talking about it. And every time that we get on and we have these conversations, it's not that we're saying, hey, this is what you should believe. We don't do that. We talk about subjects to say, hey, there's another level of how we connect to human beings. And maybe it's not in a textbook, and maybe no one's ever talked about it in your life before, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
That's right.
And it doesn't mean that you can't understand it. So, a lot of what we talk about is just having that deeper sense of connecting with people and spreading that positivity. I'm a yogi. I do yoga at least 3 times a week. It's how I center myself. It's how just how I stay calm. It's how I focus. It's how I stay positive. And meditation, I've tried to do. It's a little hard for me, but I do it after yoga. And so people will say, well, what do I have to do with that? Or they'll start to judge me because I do that. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. And, if you judge me because you don't understand it, fine. If you judge me because you've tried it, you don't like it, fine. But here's the thing. All of us, we get on every week and we talk about all these subjects. And what we really want to push forward is empathy, right? Mm-hmm. It's empathy. It's curiosity. It's trying to find out, why do you think that way? Right. What are your
getting curious? Getting curious.
What have your life experiences been? And then what's been the result of those experiences? And maybe I could use some of that in my life to enhance my human to human interaction.
Yeah. And when you were on about the bit where we're saying, look, if we'd have said this a few years ago, we'd have been called nutty, and and now it's a more of a commonly known thing, and it's what I refer to as the knowledge blind spot. So if you take something like quantum physics, for example, right? I don't know much about quantum physics, but I know that I don't know much about quantum physics. But there's a subject out there that I've probably never even heard of, that I don't even know exists, that I know nothing about because I don't know it exists. So that is my knowledge blind spot. I don't even know what I don't know. So I'm making a dreadful. I'm hoping people are keeping up with this, because I'm doing a dreadful job of explaining it. But that knowledge blind spot, I believe it goes back to what we were saying earlier. We're still in it right now. We know that these things exist somehow. We just aren't. We haven't got the capability of scientifically proving exactly how they work just yet, or they're just not getting the attention.
We will.
Well, we definitely will.
Just like in the 1800s, if we saw some of the things that we see today, they would have said, That's witchcraft. That's something. It's just something that we don't know yet. It's something that's the unknown.
Well, I have something for all of us. What about when you first got into learning body language? How many people did you meet call it, oh, that's voodoo science?
Yeah.
I know they did it to me.
Yeah.
See, I still think it's so much easier. I just want to understand you. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I believe or don't believe. I want to understand you. And if this is what you want, if this is what you believe, I want to understand what it is, get some clarity on how you define things. That's why I asked, you know, what does being a witch mean to you? When was it? Because I have a context, but mine is not yours. I want to know what yours is. And so it kind of goes to that comment I made at the very beginning. We read and we consume information, one for our own benefit, but also the other half is for the benefit of the person I'm trying to connect with so I can understand them. That's the whole point of every of us being here on this planet, whatever your job is, whether you're a recruiter for an organization, whether I'm recruiting spies, whether you're doing an interrogation, whether Gavin is doing all his hooky spooky spy stuff all over the world. It's you know, we all have to make a connection to a human being. And so the whole point of it is, hey, here's another way of looking at the world and the universe through another optic. You don't have to believe it. We don't have to defend it. It doesn't matter, because it comes to understand, if you're ever going to engage someone, how do you engage and be non-judgmentally curious? So there you go.
Right. And that's the key, non-judgmentally curious.
Yep.
Because that's what, guess what? Navigating through this human existence ain't easy, right?
Oh, you're not kidding.
It just isn't. So how are we going to do it? And the energy, being in the energy of being curious about something is so different. You can feel it in your body than it is about, okay. And I'm not saying I've never been judgmental. I'm not saying that.
Everyone is. It's survival.
We want to be a pack, right?
And Dove Barron said this on my show. He goes, of course we judge. We all judge. I say non-judgmental validation. And he was really good on it. He says discernment is the way he uses.
Correct. Yeah, being discerning. And there's a hell of a lot of things to be discerning about, right? You know, we can talk about conspiracy, right? Where that fits into all of that. I mean, we can go down a million different roads with these conversations about things, right? Things, the seen and the unseen. I was talking to her about it earlier in the car. I'm like, you know, I believe in the seen and the unseen, right? But the seen is everything that we see, but through a lens, through our own lens. And then the unseen is everything else, right?
Do you want to hear a funny story about this? I'm so sorry to interrupt.
No. I want to hear it.
So this reminds me, the first time, because I've had a lot of really great conversations in the course of my career. And the first time because I grew up in New York, you know, I'm the Northeastern guy. As an extrovert, as everyone knows, you grow up learning how to be really judgmental with a snarky mouth, which is never good for you if you're going to try to recruit human beings. And I remember starting to get my reps in of how to just let go and open and accepting people, because you have to have a lot of congruence if you're going to make a connection, make people feel safe. You can't say, oh yeah, I completely understand you. You know, you have to have that congruence. And I remember the very first time that I was faced with a situation where I needed to have congruence and be curious when I was facing something that, and an individual and a group of people that totally were out of my realm of feeling comfortable with, was this. So I had a Russian intelligence officer that I was in the midst of trying to recruit. And one of the things I'd found out about him through my investigation was that he was one of his secret parts of life was he was really into bondage and submissiveness and that kind of pornography. He had a dark side. And so there was actually a place in Brooklyn that I had found out that he was actually buying or streaming some videos from. And so on a whim, I figured this might be an interesting way to make a connection with a human being, because it's a priority in his life. It might be a challenge. And so I couldn't find the location because they had a P.O. box, but I went to the place where they had a P.O. box. I asked the manager of the place, I said, hey, I'm Robin from the FBI. I work in the world of counterintelligence. This person's mailbox, would you mind if I left my business card in there with a little note? because I couldn't have access. Yeah, sure, I'll put it in the mailbox. And I was like, think nothing of it, never thought of it again. About 2 weeks later, I get a call from this organization's lawyer. And she goes, what is it you want with my client? And I said, I actually don't want anything. I said, we have someone that is potentially a threat to U.S. national security. And I was wondering if your client might be interested in having a conversation and dialogue, because I just want to try to understand the person at a deeper level. And he said, yeah, we could help out. So first of all, I have this company and group that makes bondage, domination videos saying that they're willing to meet with the FBI. So that was interesting. And we decided to meet at a Starbucks, actually Starbucks in Greenwich Village, right off of the 6 train. And they said, we'll meet you there at noon or something at a nice neutral location. And so I'm sitting there, I'm wearing my jacket and my tie, and I'm sitting with my friend who's another agent. And in walks the head dominatrix and she's wearing all leather from all leather chains, anything you're imagining from what been portrayed in the movies. That's what walked in. Her lawyer looked exactly the same. Matter of fact, Lena, facial wise, she looked a lot like you. But she had the biker jacket on, the big spiked boots, and this was the lawyer walking in, right? Oh. And on the leash, the head dominatrix had one of her ladies. It was walking in like a dog behind her. And so I say, hey, hi, nice to meet you. My name's Robin. And again, having congruence to make them feel safe and non-judgmental. This was the first test of my severe good test of life. And and I got really curious, and it really was the best thing. So they sit down, I offered to get them some coffee, some Danish, whatnot, and they did. And I remember, and so her lady on the leash is sitting right next to me, and I looked down at her and I said, "So, what do you do?" And she said she can't talk. I'll talk for her. I said, "Okay." And she goes, "Oh, she's one of our newest models." I said, "Oh, doing what?" She goes, "Well, we, in one of our movies that we make." And I said, "Oh, so do you resell those? You make them?" She said, "No, we make all our own, and she's one of our new actresses." And I go, well, good for you. They actually, and because of that non-judgmental or discerning, curiosity, they offered to do absolutely anything. They wanted to hand over any bank records that they had from this guy, his credit card information, anything they could do to help national security. And they were willing to be confidential human sources for the FBI. I mean, it's really a great engagement. I think that was the first spark of getting some muscle memory of really curiosity. I mean, it was because when you display that kind of curiosity, as I still want to go back to what being a witch means and what you do is that from your context, because that's curious. I'm very curious about what that means to you. So anyway, it was a funny story that was it was fun. That was probably one of the most memorable interviews I've ever done. It went really well too. So.
I love that.
I know.
You could have judged her. You could have looked and you could have said, well, this is crazy. It doesn't make sense in my world, so I don't like you or whatever. And you know what? That's not the way to go, because it makes sense in their world. And that's what they're safe with. That's what makes it fun. It's just, so as humans, we always have this need to drag people over to our belief. Like, no, I believe that. Like when I became vegetarian in, oh my gosh, I can't remember. I was 20 years old. Okay. It was a long time ago. And the vegetarian word didn't exist. But I became a vegetarian. Nobody got it. Everybody judged me. Well, what are we going to do? We can't feed you. And I just got ridiculed. For years, I got ridiculed.
Especially being Italian.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then my grandmother thought that I was going to get very sick. And she's like, well, okay, don't worry.
Even more castor oil?
Just eat this meatball.
The castor oil. Did you just say castor oil? Oh my God.
Castor oil. I got that.
Line up.
Oh, I did. I lined up for castor oil.
Line up for the castor oil. Oh my gosh.
But it's when we don't understand something, right? We automatically want to say, no, you shouldn't do that. You should believe what I believe, because what I believe is right. Well, how do you know that? Right. And let me tell you, I'm guilty of that. I'm so guilty of that. I've done that in my life. And it's not until we grow mentally, emotionally, having that emotional awareness where we say, wait a minute, my way is not the way. Other people have absolute power and acceptance to do what they want to do.
We all
I'm not
do.
judging.
Sovereignty.
Yeah.
We all have our
Everyone has a one thing I always try to take in every time you meet someone and every time you see someone making a decision with their life and the things they're doing, the first thing to always remember is they put a lot of thought into what they're doing and they think it's in their best interest to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
Figure out why.
Because they wouldn't otherwise, right?
No one thinks they're doing anything to harm themselves intentionally. Now, they might be doing self-harm unintentionally, unaware. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why people do things, but try to figure out why they think it is what they're doing and what they are getting out of doing these things, whether it's self-medicating, self-soothing, or because they're living a very healthy, prosperous life from their point of view. They are doing it for very good reasons from their point of view. That's what, to me, is making that deep connection and being curious.
So I'm going to throw something in the mix. I'm going to go way back to when I was an interrogator. It was very hard to sit across from a member of Al-Qaeda and Taliban and have them tell me that we deserved 9/11 and that more Americans needed to die. Very difficult. But the thing is if I wanted information to stop future attacks, I couldn't be judgmental. I couldn't go into an argument. So I had to let that wave over me, have the emotional control, and get curious. Okay, why do you feel that way? And with that curiosity got me high value intelligence information that saved lives.
Yep.
So it's being able to say, I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to do this.
It's getting curious.
It's
always.
getting curious.
Getting curious.
Without judgment.
Well, Robin's heard me say it a few times. I know he likes my saying that. I've said it several times on these shows. Find the beauty in different.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that. I do. I have such a great mix of friends from so many different communities and people. When I'm like walking through like town with one friend and I come across another, you can almost see the judgmental looks on the two completely different friends from completely different ends of the spectrum, looking like, how do you know him and how would you know her? And and for me, my friends are my friends no matter what, no matter what walk of life they come from. And I can always see the good in them because this is it no matter what.
You know what runs through my mind when I see a reaction like that?
Go on.
Why is this causing them pain?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because everyone's trauma response is different and that's trauma coming out for some reason. And then it makes you curious and empathetic because like what is causing this pain for them?
That's right. And it's their story and everyone has one, right? Yep. It's like the trigger word is very, cash right now. Everyone's like,
and that's the tough part is to not judge the judger.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's just a circular thing, right? So, it's being, are you going to combat yourself or the other person? Or it doesn't matter because we're all connected beings, right? And so, like, part of me believes that every single person is a facet of ourselves.
Yep.
Right. And so maybe try to find when you can find some bit of empathy or something, kindness, understanding in that person, then we can, or in ourselves, we can extend it outwards. But, we're constantly combating ourselves. Where do you think that goes? It's just going to go out. That's what people do. They lash out. So, and then Robin, back to you. Well, I have so many things I'd like to say. There's so much of wisdom and truth bomb going around this room, right? I could just keep going back and forth. But to answer your question about what it means to me to be a witch.
Because that was the start for you, right?
Yeah, that was the start for me.
Right. That's why I'm curious about that.
What it means to me is that I believe that there's, in the universe, there's a power. It's called different things in many different religions, chi, whatever you want to call it. There's a life force that we are all connected to in the ethers, the energy that's in between. And what I think being a witch means is tapping into that, right? And using all of the different elements, the elementals, fire, earth, air, water, using everything and I'm not saying to manipulate, I don't use it to manipulate, but tapping into that energy in ways. There's ritual that I do. There's also meditation that I do. There's the tapping that I do, this coaching that I do, I'm tapping into that all the time, you know, to gain connection. It's like a connection to me, like plugging into something, right? So that's what I consider it. And now it's different for everybody, but that's what, and I tend to feel, I consider myself a pagan. And I believe that before Christianity came into play, which was, I don't want to get into this and say any, I don't want to get into that because it's controversial and I don't want to trigger people because people are very,
so we can keep it to this. So this was the first thing you did, was your spark for your woo.
Yeah, I found something that I connected to.
Right. And so that's my follow-on question to that is, how did that help you feel connected at that age?
It gave me strength to draw from.
By yourself, or did it make you, did it allow you to connect with others around you?
But something greater than myself that I tapped into that wasn't judgmental and hurting other people, which is what I was brought into, which was what I was taught.
And how did you discover it?
Didn't fit.
And how did you discover it?
How did I discover that?
Yeah.
Like, it was, I don't know.
Like it's a solution that presented itself. I was just kind of curious where it came from.
I think it came, that's the whole magic of it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know.
But it floated into your life.
I think I tapped into my spirit guides. I think I tapped into something. Something was talking to me and yelling at me like.
Did you first then read it in a book? Did you see it somewhere else?
Well, maybe because when I picked up that book, I started to rethink concepts that I had not really heard previously. Now it could have been through dreams. It could have been. I really could have been through anything. I mean, actually, if I can be really honest, there's been some things in my family, like we're Sicilian. There's been some things that kind of would fall under esotericism. There's some ritual stuff that happened in my family that would definitely not fall under the Christian.
No.
So maybe it was just always in my family, and I just didn't always listen to it, or like the rest of my siblings weren't drawn to that, but I was. Why was I drawn to that? Right. So I feel that it's something past life. I just do. I think that there's something like that carried over into this life when I chose to come into this body, my soul came into this body to have this experience.
Have you ever done any guided regressions?
Yeah. Well, one time years ago, I've definitely had some Akashic. I had an Akashic reading once. That's Akashic records. That's a whole other conversation. But yes, and I had someone tell me that I lived in a convent, and I think it was one of my lives. I've had many. I've been told, at least through readings. Well, one of them was that I lived in a convent in probably the 1800s in France, and I was abused by the head nun of this convent. And consequently, some of the things that happened in that relationship, I never was accepted and loved. So those unresolved feelings have carried over into this lifetime. And so there's still some of that stuff that I'm still working through, not being accepted. And it kind of, when I heard that, I'm like, some light bulbs went off. I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense, because I always have this one of my stories is that I'm not being accepted, not being understood, not always feeling like I have to bend over 5 ways to get approval from people, and that I need that approval. So that story, when I heard that, the person that did this reading didn't know that about me.
So you had this first experience with witchcraft, and
that was very young. Yes.
Right. Which made you feel empowered and not alone anymore. When was the first time then that you felt connected to other people in a group?
Oh, well, so I'll tell you this. I never had so I will tell you, I was in a coven about 10 years ago. So I met some other witches that we ended up getting together, and I felt very connected. It didn't end up working out for the long haul. But before that, I had a lot of friends that I had things in common with, but never, ever that I felt this cohesiveness that I would have wanted to feel. Like I just felt like I was floating through life by myself for a really, really long time. And still to this day, I do. There's many times that I feel like misunderstood, or
Right.
like I can't quite connect 100% with people. That happens all the time still.
So when did she enter your life?
Lena? Do we want to go into this story? I don't know.
This might be a whole nother episode.
Yeah,
It is a dun dun
It
dun.
is a really crazy.
We are nearly up to the hour. I've got to ask though. You know when you filled in the
I'll
application form
monopolizing. I
for your
apologize. I
job.
could go forever.
Yeah, you know when you filled in the application form for your job and it said past life experience, what did you put?
Good.
There should be. I keep glancing at these comments. That's just interesting.
I know. I try to keep.
I've only discovered tonight that I can kind of say
That's
some of
not
these.
topic, clearly.
I've got to answer Rick's question from earlier, who asked how much money can you guess is 3 pallets worth. So I can only assume at this point that he's read my book. So on a heavy duty Euro pallet with each, if it was $100 bills in $10,000 bricks that are 0.5 millimeters each, you will get about $50 million on each pallet, standing about 3'6" high, with a 0.01 gap with the air gap between each of the dollars. So if that answers your question, on 3 pallets you will get about 150 million US dollars. So there you go.
I don't know where
I'm lost. I was thinking this whole time.
Oh.
I was thinking about when you were talking about the rice experiment, about Miramoto with the water and the crystals. You know that?
Oh yeah, same thing can be done. Yeah. In fact, somebody
heavy metal music.
Yeah.
The crystals of the water will look completely different, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you talk, do you do this? Do you guys?
Someone mentioned it in the comments, so I was
Yeah,
reading.
they did. Yeah. Exactly the same thing when you're freezing ice. You can do exactly the same thing.
That's right. Do you ever talk to your water before you drink it?
I don't.
Okay, so that's a thing. Okay, so when you have a glass of water, you actually can infuse it with your energy, your thoughts, and you bless your water as you're drinking it. Right?
Religions bless before they eat and drink.
I mean, this is like. I mean, why is that?
Yep.
You know.
Well, that actually brings me to
some things are okay to be like they're acceptable. It's almost like, you know, when you're talking to people. This is really out there, but like I know that when I listen to people talking just in everyday life, oh, I can't wait to go home and drink my glass of wine, and it's okay. But if I went and said, oh, I can't wait to go home and drink a couple of shots of vodka, I'm gonna look like a drunk, but she's gonna look like, oh, it's okay to drink the wine. It's just
true.
It's so true. But it's like
perception.
It's perception about things, right? Yeah. And so, Robin, you've given me so much to think about with just.
Look at it, like I
know.
Really does.
Yeah, that's
the thing is, a lot of what this woo and the kind of healing side of it, and things that we're doing and that we're allegedly discovering now, were done thousands of years ago. We're not discovering it; we're rediscovering it. There's so much that's going on around it. Do you know anything about semantics at all, and where that comes from? And
semantics.
Somatics. So I think it's sometimes called cymatics. Some people pronounce it chematics, but it's basically, you know, when you were talking about playing music to water, you know, you get that vibration and the water changes shape, and it's the same as if you freeze it, it'll freeze in a different way. Very similar to if you go into these big cathedrals and they've got them big fancy round stained glass windows with hundreds and loads of intricate designs and that kind of thing, and I'm sure you've seen the kind of thing where you can put sand on a big disc and you can vibrate that sand and that kind of thing. I'm going a roundabout way of explaining all this, but there was an experiment done where a lady went into a church and recorded the silence through a microphone that went back through speakers that made it louder, that went back through the microwave, so it became increasingly louder each time it was looped through the amplifier system. What happened was it caused a vibration and caused the sand on the disc to vibrate and form the shape, which was exactly the same as the windows in the cathedral. So now,
Wow.
Full somatics, it's the experiment of like visually displaying the sound. Now, those particular shapes that are formed were also the same with water that froze and everything else. But if you go a step further, each and every one of those shapes is actually. Have you seen a strand of DNA? You know like that spiral type visual. But instead of looking at it from the side, if you were to put it so it's like a tube facing towards you, you'd have that exact same shape that were created by the somatics, which are the same things that are in the cathedral windows. And this is why when you go into a cathedral, they're done in a particular way. When you're on about vibration and frequency, that is in that particular building, which is set to a particular frequency that makes you feel good. That's why when you go to church and pray and you leave, you feel better. There's so much about frequency and vibration that
we can talk about vibration, the scale, the vibration scale, the lowest vibration of emotion, the very bottom. Do you know what it is?
Go on.
Do you know what it is?
No.
It's shame. Shame is the lowest emotion on the vibration scale. Yeah.
How about that?
It's a scale that goes all the way up to
because it's very internal? Because it's very internal.
I don't know exactly why, but if you feel shame, like think about it. I mean,
I did an episode on shame with Joe Navarro and Abby Morano. Yeah, shame is bad.
Shame is it's.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but we're over the hour.
What do you think that goes back to?
Shame.
The story of Adam and Eve.
Yep. Well, so if Jordan Peterson talks about that in his book, The 12 Rules for Life, where it's interesting that one of the first texts, and it goes back to the Old Testament, teaches man how to have shame.
Right.
In front of God, which is the story of Adam and Eve.
Right.
Yeah. And you know what? The only thing I can say there is this is probably why women always have a hard time picking where to eat. You know, because last time, if you go back in time to any, caused a lot of trouble. Right. What I'm going to do before I end up getting shot. I think this has been really, really interesting. We've definitely opened some doorways and some minds, hopefully, as well. I've loved going down this a bit. Like I said, I'm really, really new to this. We're just over the hour. I've really enjoyed it. I'm hoping a lot of other people have as well. For everybody in the comments now, if you can just type yes if you want, some more of this again. If you want us to come back and do a number 3, I think it'd be absolutely brilliant. Ali, would you be willing to come and join us?
Absolutely. And I did want to answer Brian. Asked about my bracelets.
Yes,
so, Brian, not only do I have bracelets on, but I keep crystals in my bra. I'm just going to pull out one, and I keep them in my pockets. And these bracelets they're stones. I have one here. I'm just going to give you a quick example. This is a labradorite. This is an amethyst here. And these are crystals. They're organic crystals, and they all serve different purposes. Okay, so I keep she's got amethyst right there. So I keep I'm just going to give you guys all a tip. I'm in business. I'm in sales, right? So it's a big deal for me to have business work smoothly. So I keep, this is citrine, and it's a great stone for business, for dealings. Okay, so I keep that in my pocket.
I have
selenite.
Yeah,
selenite is good for selenite is good for clearing negativity.
Yep.
And we talked about, we can talk about plant medicine. I mean, there's so much. This can go down, people talk about saging things, right? That's plant medicine, okay? Just like now you hear a lot about ayahuasca. I don't know if you guys know a lot about that ayahuasca. Oh my God. Okay,
that's
so
another
moment, but plant medicine, saging.
Wow.
Most people think, I'm going to go buy a sage stick and I'm going to sage someone's house. It's more complex than that. It's connecting to the energy of the plant. Okay. So it's all about connection. You guys are all about connection. Everything you do is about connecting to people. Robin, Gavin, the show that you did last. These are all other ways of connection.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it.
Well, I mean, a couple of things. I'm going to ask on Robin's behalf. I'm going to assume and go out on a limb here. Would you be willing to come on Robin's show? And
Me?
would you be? Yeah. And would
Oh,
you be
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm starstruck.
And
I'm starstruck, Lily.
would you be happy to come back and give us all a part 3 as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
I'm all in.
Brilliant.
Yes.
I'd love to explore this a little bit more. I really
I
would.
love it. I love the
Absolutely
conversation.
great.
It's just a beautiful exchange of ideas.
Oh yeah,
And non-judgmental, you know.
I'm learning. I'm learning, and I love it. I love learning. So,
I'm learning too.
do you know? Before we wrap it up, do you know anything about grounding?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
brilliant.
yes.
I need to find out a little bit
A
more.
lot, and there's a lot of different ways to do it.
Well, a friend of mine recently invested in a grounding, not a grounding blanket, a grounding sheet, where he's like put this kind of pole right down deep into the earth outside his house. There's a copper coil around it. The copper coil comes in through his window into this sheet, and there's something that runs through the sheet that allows him to basically earth himself on this sheet.
Okay.
Also, hopefully he never gets stuck in a lightning storm.
I never, ever did something physical like that, the manifestation in that way. But I will tell you that one of the grounding exercises that I do is a meditation, and it's visualizing a grounding cord coming out of your body, traveling through the earth and going to the center.
Wow, that's amazing.
The earth and grounding all of that energy.
I love that,
right?
John.
Or the easiest way to do it is to take your shoes off.
Shoes off, yeah.
Go stand out on the earth and let the earth neutralize all that energy.
Right, so that goes back to what you were saying about energy flow and about us all being energy, and letting. I mean,
it's transmutation, which is one of the 12 universal laws of the universe.
Oh wow, we got to.
Another conversation.
I'm going to point out a comment by John. Grounding makes my antenna work better for humans.
That's why when I was so some of those chuckles I'm doing because I'm reading the comments. I read that one too, so I chuckled.
I love that, John. That's awesome.
John, it's good to see you.
Wow. So
there's a lot of different ways to do it with crystals, like she said, selenite. I mean, we could talk. Yeah, there's a lot. This could be covered, and I think that this is really an important conversation that we have to have as humans, because something's got to bring us together instead of this.
Oh yeah. And I'm really happy to explore all of this, because this is something that I think has been kind of, like you say, it's kind of swept under the rug because it's alien to people. So just like vegetarians 20 years ago, they were like, oh, and now it's an accepted thing. And I think in many years, or not too many years, what we're talking about now is probably going to be something that's a lot more accepted when people start to understand it a little bit more. And this is what I reckon. Arguably one of the smartest people in the history of mankind is Nikola Tesla. I mean, some of the things he did, he invented the jet engine 100 years before the aeroplane was invented. The guy is so smart. He invented AC electricity, wireless communication, things that are just out of this world. And he believed in the grounding and
100%.
Kind of all of this, and the energy side of things. There's so much that we could go down that route with what Nikola Tesla did with his, and he was on about like the Tesla coil that he invented is just literally based on the earth. It's just taking energy from the earth, and it's a smaller version. So
I know train tracks were built before a train was ever built.
I can believe that. Do you know how wide train tracks are?
No, I don't know.
They're 8.52, 8 feet 5 inches and a half. And the reason being that it's exactly the width of 2 horses' asses. And it goes back to when the Romans used to have the carts, the horse-drawn carts. They would create kind of ruts in the road, so that they kept all the carts were kept to a standard size, which was those 2 horses. When the railroad was invented and they started making the trucks for the railroad, it was the same manufacturers that made the carts that then went on to make the railroad tracks, and that was when they kept them to the same standard size. So how about that? A little bit of history.
So much we could do with history, like when we went to World War I and the width of European roads versus U.S. There's just like so much we could go on, but I know that we are at 1 hour and 9 minutes.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm so grateful. Thank you for having me, and being able to talk about this stuff. I could listen.
We're meeting you, Ali.
You too. I could talk about this stuff. Obviously, I do talk about it quite a bit.
Oh, brilliant. Well, if anybody wants to find out more, get the Clubhouse app. I think anybody can just join up now, can't they? It's not like it used to be.
You don't need an invite. My club is called Embrace the Woo. You can find me. I have a show every Friday. It's the Bewitching Hour, and I have a emotion code on Tuesdays. Emotion code is a modality that was invented by Dr. Bradley Nelson, who was a chiropractor, and it's about tapping into our meridian systems also. So look into it. It's really cool.
Fantastic.
And if you're interested in it, if you've been struggling with something and you can't let go of an emotion that's been holding you back, reach out to me, because I can hook you up with a mini session and you can try it.
That's great. Let's hope a few people come over to you. Robin, who have you got on this week? Who's next?
As you all saw, Eric, we just had Eric's episode on Monday. It was fantastic. Eric Hunley, he brought a lot of his guests, so that was a great episode. Jessica Kriegel is who's coming on Monday. She is a corporate culture person. Her backstory, just to give you a tease on this, again, when I asked her about the spark that made her so passionate about creating a good, healthy culture at work, she shared her story about her dad, who went on a worldwide motorcycle tour for 12 years.
Whoa.
And then tragically died of a brain aneurysm as well.
Wow.
And the impact that he had on her life and made her passionate. She's got a PhD in this stuff, and her episode, profound, impactful, and another good one. So that's on Monday.
Wow. Absolutely brilliant. Wow. And Lena, your book, shameless plug time.
I know. It's like, oh wait, here it is. Oh wait, I'm going to show you instead the cookie.
Oh
yeah. Made me a cookie.
Hey.
Thanks.
Look at that.
So yeah, it just came out November 15th. Honest Answers. It's interviewing and negotiation, but it's not just for law enforcement or interviewers. Like, if you want to have an honest conversation, you want honest answers, I give you techniques to use in your everyday life, no matter what industry that you're in.
Brilliant. And you've got a masterclass coming up soon, haven't you?
Ooh, yes. I am offering my very first masterclass on the book. So if you get the book, great, you'll have a heads up, but you don't need to. And you can go to my company's website, thecongruencygroup.com. On there's going to be in the top heading called HAMC, Honest Answers Masterclass. It's a 2-part class. The first part is self-paced on Thinkific and open registration, although I already have people registering. I only can take 40 people. So if you want to register fast, or hit me up on an email. You can get my email on my company website. The first part is self-paced. The second part is a 4-hour live webinar with me, which is why I cap it at 40 people, because I'm going through all of that stuff, taking your questions, and we're role-playing and dissecting all that information on the 3 core areas, which is interviewing, negotiation, and elicitation.
Brilliant. And for anybody else who wants to know a little bit more as well, there is the Facebook page, which is TCG Tribe. That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. On Facebook, so you can join us on there. I think Brian's asked when Jim's coming back. We'll have to ask him.
Yeah, I'm not his episode with me will be out in December as well. That's
brilliant.
I interviewed him about a week or 2 ago, and he goes into an areas of his life he's never done either before, he said. So that's another great episode. I can't wait to share with everyone. That'll be in December.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Can I get a bit of nepotism and have some early access to that?
Of course, anything anyone wants.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you. So brilliant, right? And for anybody else, I'm also doing Wednesday nights with Siobhan, where we're doing a bit of spy tradecraft. I believe she's coming onto your show soon as well, isn't she?
Yeah, I spoke to her. I did Siobhan's pre-chat a couple days ago, and that's she's funny as heck, man. Another great, fantastic backstory there that I absolutely love.
Yes.
I know she's in the middle of starting jobs and everything, but we're about to schedule our interview for that show soon too. So she'll probably be out maybe late December into January. So she's coming up really soon too. I got a lot of people in the bucket. I got to get out in sequence, but yeah, there is no one ever bad that comes on because everyone's got a beautiful story. So
I seriously wanted to tell you her backstory, and I thought, no, I'm going to let you find out for yourself. You'll enjoy this one.
Oh yeah, it was. I should have started recording our pre-show because we were on for about an hour, and again, every time something came out of her mouth, it just sparked another curiosity. Like,
don't say.
Oh, in fact, Siobhan and Lena will be with myself on the 7th of December as well. We're doing a special on leadership. So that's another good thing for everybody to look forward to. So it's just getting better and better for everybody. So brilliant. Right. Thank you, everybody who joined us. We will be next week. We'll be on the Facebook page and back here.
And congratulations, you two, on your books.
Hey, thank you.